readiness now for the start as the promotional people leave the grid.
33.6 kilometres, 8 laps, and they're away in a fairly uneven start. Is Anderson gets away best, followed by Goddard. Roger Marshall into third place. Both Kevin McGee, Michael Dowson, first and third qualifiers get away badly. It's Malcolm Campbell, though, surges from the outside into the lead on the NR750 that he crashed at Oran Park last weekend. And from Rob McElroy's bike, have a look at them as they crank on now towards the banked Calder circuit, the Thunderdome.
They're not going to be using up high on the dome. They've been precluded from doing that by race officials who say it's too dangerous up high, so they're clinging down low. This, the widest radius corner in Australian motorcycle racing.
Tony Armstrong battling there with Rob McElroy as he tried to get around him, and they swapped places. Dowson looking for a way down the inside. So you can see the witches' hats there marking the area beyond which they cannot go.
And it's Roger Marshall in third place, just about to be passed by McGee, who dives up the inside. Dowson looks for the way through, but can't. Marshall gets back past McGee as he was put offline.
But just look at the superb lead as McGee now comes down the inside of Marshall, but Marshall's having none of it. He is a top rider.
And a very, very smooth and experienced one. The man who went for a rodeo ride there at something around 160 kilometres an hour last weekend, Peter Goddard, actually was off the right-hand side of the bike, rode it to a halt, bump-started it and got going again.
And Goddard up into second place with this fantastic duel going on for third position, but there's the race leader, the man who desperately wanted to establish exactly the gap he's got of 2.28 seconds before he's finished lap 1. Here's Malcolm Campbell. He is going for it.
And McGee and Dowson have surged through. They've come up to third and fourth place, putting Marshall back to fifth. This man leading the field, coming round to complete the first of 8. He's got the NR750 Honda squirming and working. He's giving it everything, right out to 16,000 revs, calling on the 160 horsepower. McGee's now second. Dowson's punching for third, and he gets it. And so back goes Goddard to fourth.
2.2 seconds the gap from the Works Honda back to the Works Yamahas in second and third position. Then comes Pete Goddard, the dirt bike specialist, and there we are again on Rob McElroy's Yamaha. She comes on to the Thunderdome.
Have a look how long he stays cranked over. Just count the seconds to yourself. Working the bike all the time.
That's Robert Holden in front of him on the Action Suzuki. The Action Suzuki keeping ahead of the Yamaha as we're now back with the leaders. That's Goddard back in third place.
But he's in front of Michael Dowson, and Dowson had already picked him off a little earlier on the lap.
In first and second place, Malcolm Campbell, who crashed last weekend in Heat 1, and then took a gutsy third place in Heat 2, and Kevin McGee, who crashed in qualifying yesterday. That's Campbell, the nuggety 33-year-old Tasmanian. Look at the way he is working the bike. McGee follows, then Goddard, and now the Suzuki of Robert Holden, looking back to Rob McElroy.
McElroy looking for a way round. It's too tight here. He goes one way, then the other. Now he'll try and line up Holden, trying to go one side or the other as we exit from the flip-flop. No, Holden holds the advantage. Now we see the view from McElroy looking up the inside of Holden, trying to outbrake him into the tight right-hander. He looks as though he's done it. Yes, he's got past Holden and is now on the tail of Anders Anderson.
The race leader, Campbell, coming round to complete quarter distance, 2 laps out of 8.
And the gap is 1.75 seconds from Campbell back to Kevin McGee.
Dowson goes back to third. Marshall still fifth, Goddard's fourth. Great performance by Goddard. Fairly inexperienced in road racing, brilliant on dirt. Look at him sandwiched in the pack there. The Skoll Bandit Suzuki making the third of that pack, beaten Marshall in fifth place.
Holden back in front of McElroy. McElroy looking for the outside line around the Action Suzuki. Inches away from him, knee on the deck, both riders scraping the ground. Now looking back from Holden as they get up onto the D, the front straight in the Thunderdome.
That's 265 kilometres an hour right there.
And listen to the engines and the gearboxes being worked. Similar bike, Rob McElroy's, to Michael Dowson and Kevin McGee, but not identical. This is the bike that won the Australian Grand Prix with Kevin McGee riding at Winton recently.
The dice for fourth place.
Goddard busy with Marshall, but this the leader. Campbell, followed by McGee.
McGee working at him, trying to go to get the gap closer, and he's doing it ever so slowly. There's only about 0.2 of a second between these bikes in practice.
Up by my calculations to 2 seconds, so
Campbell responding very much so then.
To it, it's about 1.8 as it steadies. It does vary in different parts of the racetrack, but Campbell fighting very, very hard, doing a 48.6 on his second lap. Coming up now with the bike working and squirming and trying to buck him and get rid of him to complete lap 3. 48.03 for Campbell, 140 kilometres an hour average.
Third place, Michael Dawson. Fourth place is Pete Goddard. Fifth place, Roger Marshall. There on bike 4, Suzuki.
Man working right out as wide as he dare go to keep his line right in what's called a D section of track. So that's the pit lane area. Racing around this bowl in the opposite direction to which the NASCARs will use it, the North American Stock Car Association beasts on February the 28th coming. Val Campbell. 9 to 16,000 revs, really gutsy power band, usable from 5 or 6,000 onwards. Kevin McGee chasing him with 1,000 cc's and a slightly heavier bike. Dawson, Goddard, Robbie Scollier.
Scollier, of course, on the second of the Works Hondas, teammate to Mal Campbell. And Campbell really working the bike as he comes over the top of the hill. Now, this is the section of track where Kevin McGee was demonstrably faster yesterday. Last night, the Honda team changed the front end geometry on Campbell's bike to try and get him through that fast section of S's just a little bit quicker, and it seems, Peter Clifford, to have worked.
Yeah, he's certainly getting through there very well now. And there's another interesting section of track. You watch Campbell as he tries to get the power on the back end slides. He's had 1 or 2 nasty moments, both front and rear suspension working overtime there as the rear wheel slides and starts the bike seesawing from side to side.
McGee giving his bike just as much too, and about 1.8 seconds in arrears. The two men absolutely flying in low 48s. Michael Dawson said earlier on, I think we might see 47s today. The touring cars here, the Ford Sierra Cosworth turbos, practiced here only 5 seconds faster. They were using, of course, the high part of the banking, so it's not strictly comparable, because they'd be quicker through the bends than these bikes. Staying down low, and the magnificent view from above, down to the seating area, not quite complete, but going ahead at an enormous pace for that stock car meeting on February 28th.
Now this is a tricky section. It's the long, sweeping right-hander. Campbell fighting for control because the front tyre wants to push away all the way through that corner. Now through the very tight left flick and that's sweeping, opening up left-hander, and it looks to me as though McGee is closer at that point. And of course now comes a very important psychological advantage that McGee can see Campbell right in front of him and can try and take that yard out at every corner.
Michael Dawson back on bike 1, who last week he was dreaming of $50,000 for winning all 6 heats. At the moment he's looking at 2 guys who are saying you're not going to do it. We're going to ruin it for you. Kevin McGee's half a second closer to Malcolm Campbell now, 1.3 seconds as they go up the back straight. McGee goes deep down under brakes and he closes on the Honda rider. He really is now making a determined effort. This is lap 5, 3 remain after this final top corner, glow weave. Campbell being chased by the man who's got the international ride for next year. The man in front wants it and is jealous of him. He's 9 years older, he's 33 to McGee's 24. And they go out on lap 6.
1.27 seconds the gap as they went over the start-finish line that time round. So the gap is getting closer. And Peter Clifford, it's just possible that Mal Campbell is taking the edge off his front tyres, which is slowing him down.
Yes, he did fear that over the last couple of laps of the race, the 8-lap race, that the front tyre might not be performing as it did at the beginning. All the riders are concerned about front tyre wear here because the bike spends so much time right on its side. And as Mal explained, you're neither really on the power or on the brakes. It's just feathering there. And as we watch Campbell, then McGee dive into the right-hander, you have to wonder at how they control these machines.
9-10 I make it as they flash through that back section of the back pole. Mal Campbell with an experimental, very, very valuable, difficult bike to ride, oval piston. The engineers look at it and say, yeah, well, it's a V8 with only 4 barrels. Because it's got the piston area, it's got the valves, it's got the same number of conrods and the same number of spark plugs as a V8. And this bike is 33 1/3% bigger. It's 1,000 cc's. The Honda's 750, but the Honda's a little bit lighter and it's a little bit more powerful and it spreads its power over a wider band. And McGee is really out after Malcolm Campbell. It's still that 9/10 of a second.
The rest of the field they are. Dowsett coming through in the distant third place.
YG under brakes. They're both absolute demons on that lap. So deep. McGee went down and looked as though he was making ground, but Campbell matched him.
And I haven't seen Campbell look behind him at all. The Honda really bucking and weaving now, but I'm sure Campbell knows exactly where McGee is from his pit signals.
Back after a second, so each is responding with all that they've got, setting new lap records because, of course, this combination of circuits never been used for motorcycle racing before. This is the circuit that Calder will host Australian rounds of the World Championships in 1989, sometime that year. The preferred date at the moment is March. There'd be several rounds, 2 at least, 250 and 500cc Grand Prix classes. And Daniel Gerard, who's in charge of that submission and will go to the FIM in Geneva in February to oversee the submission from the Australian controlling body, is very interested in rider comments that the entry in and off the bowl is probably the least good part of the track at the moment. Look at where Kevin McGee is now. Although he looks physically closer, it's still that nearly 9/10 of a second though.
Third place is Michael Dowson. Fourth place is bike 4, Rob Scollier. Then comes 14, Pete Goddard on the Moriwaki, followed by Roger Marshall on the Suzuki and Rob McElnay on the third of the Mulberry Yamahas.
And after this lap, 1 remains. They're coming round to complete 7, up through that quick kink where they don't lift off at all, up the back straight. And have a look at the way they brake as Campbell comes down the gears now. McGee at about the same spot. Campbell taunting him with the side of his bike so close, but he just really can't find the ground. Campbell responding beautifully. Going back
wide. Campbell's way wide on that corner. Must have lost ground to McGee.
9/10 of a second still. It had been 1.3. It cost him nearly half a second. They go out in the final. This is the 8th at last. Down under brakes now. And it's 8/10 of a second McGee from Campbell. Slow there because this is a very slow corner. It's not a continuous open corner. Mal Campbell now guns up 160 horsepower on a bike that weighs only 150 kilograms. 15 kilos heavier, the bike chasing him. Enormous mid-range torque though. 2 brilliant riders. Kevin McGee headed for the World 500 Championships next year. Been up in Singapore this week having the publicity photos taken with the Kenny Roberts Lucky Strike team as they come down now off the bowl for the final time. And surely Campbell has done it. He's got a... Nothing's comfortable, but by gee, it's a useful buffer.
Yes, Campbell really should be able to hold it from here, but the Honda's been very, very lively. He's been pushing it absolutely to the limit, and it only needs a slide in the wrong place to put McGee right on his tail.
Down the bottom section of circuit now, Valvoline. Heading then right and left, the S's. Then up towards the crest. And watch Campbell's bike there, and how would you like to be on it? He's in gunning towards 170-odd kilometres an hour. Then they have to line up for this highly committed, very high-speed flip-flop. Down the back straight now. Campbell not quite as deep under brakes, I don't think, as McGee, but he's not doing a thing wrong. As the gap between them's about 1.1 seconds. Nothing either can do, either to enlarge the gap or reduce it in McGee's case. 1 corner remains now. The Honda leads the Yamaha. Malcolm Campbell, the 33-year-old Tasmanian, from the 25-year-old just turned from Horsham, Victoria, and it will be victory in the 3rd heat of this year's Swann Insurance International Series round. The first of round 2 to Malcolm Campbell from Kevin McGee.
So that good win by Malcolm Campbell makes the leaderboard look like this after 3 heats. Dowson on 40, McGee on 36, Campbell now 25, Scolyer 24, Marshall 19, Holden 15, Goddard 12, Anderson 9, McElnay on the board there with 7 points, the defending champion, Slight on 6, Willing on 4, and Pete Byers picking up 1 point. Well, the riders and their support teams are now having a frantic fiddle to tune up their bikes for Heat 2 this afternoon, which we'll be covering live at Calder Park in just a few moments when it starts. But live at the Thunderdome right now, the voice and face of Australian motorcycling's Murray Walker, is John Smales. John, thanks for joining us. Firstly, Malcolm Campbell's deprived Dowson of that $50,000 bonus. Do you think any rider could realistically win all 6 heats?
It's never been done, Charles. The only time it's even come close is when Geoffrey Sale, back in the initial Swann Series in 1978, won the first 4 of the 6, and that's as close as anyone's come.
Well, John, they're racing at the Thunderdome this weekend for the first time on motorcycles. How have the riders reacted to the new track out there?
The reaction varies from blind fear, I guess, Charles, to healthy respect. Blind fear, literally, because Mal Campbell says when he's high up on the eastern wall, the vibration's so great that he honestly can't see where he's going. He can't read his tachometer, and all he sees in front of him is a blur. But the real problem is for the bikes. Now, I've got here with me Michael Dowson's front tyre from the first heat. Just have a look at the burring on the right-hand edge of the tyre. Now, that much tyre wear you wouldn't get normally in a 200-kilometre race. But that tyre wear was as bad after 4 laps as it was after 8. And what it means is as the Dowson leant into the circuit, what he was doing was riding on marbles rather than on fresh rubber, and the front end of the bike was just pushing straight out. And that is a fearful thing for a rider.
OK, John, and finally, can you bring us up to date? What's the latest on this push to get a round of the World Motorcycling Grand Prix out to Australia so we can watch Gardner and hopefully Kevin McGee in action out here?
Well, Gardner's winning the world title has really put the cat amongst the pigeons. There are at least 4 serious attempts by Australian promoters to get the round to Australia in 1989. All 4 of them have put up $5,000 bond money with the FIM, the world controlling body, and they're all lobbying fiercely against each other at the moment to get the round in 1989. Calder Park reckon they're in with a real big chance because they've also put in their bed with the full map of the circuit, which they've already got built, whereas at least 2 of the other rounds still have to build their circuits.
All right, John, well, fingers crossed, we'll look forward to that. But for the next 35 minutes or so, Sports Arena is all yours, so take it away from the Thunderdome.
Well, Charles, what's happening next is a round for production bikes. The Swann Series bikes, of course, are improved production bikes, putting out about 150 to 160 horsepower. But the real category in Australia has always been production bikes. They still put out 130 horsepower. Let's go now and see the Eon FM Challenge for production bikes.
It's forming up on the grid for the 3rd and final leg of the 1987 Eon FM Challenge. It's over 5 laps, that's 21 kilometres, around this 4.2 kilometre per lap combination of banked oval circuit and flat track at Calder, and that's the field. And you're looking at Glenn Taylor on bike number Steve Martin on 97. But you should be interested in him particularly because with a 1st and a 3rd place he has 25 points in the series, leading it from Jeff Paul, who has 20 points. Paul is on bike number 24. Andrew De Kuyper is in 3rd place with 15 from a 3rd and a 6th place. Watch also for Grant Hodgson. He's on bike number 8 and he storms away very well. So too does Phil Watt on 15. Hodgson slotting back into 2nd place, beautifully positioned. He crashed in the first heat, but then he won the 2nd, so he's equal in 3rd place with 15 points.
And it looked to me as though it was Andrew Roberts who dived into the lead, going into the first 2 tricky left-handers, and now leads as they sweep around the bottom of the Thunderdome.
That was really the most horrible start I've ever seen, Peter. They were all over the track. It was as if half of them weren't ready for him.
Yes, there's been some ragged starts today, but now Roberts coming under a bit more pressure from Hodgson. Oh, sorry, it's Hodgson has already taken the lead.
Hodgson, of course, the current Australian 1000cc production bike champion, and the winner of the 1987 Ken Blake Award for the promising new riding talent in Australia.
Former motocrosser, 24 years old, good style of a young man. He's putting a lot of effort into his racing. He's been doing 250 and 1000cc production bikes. He's been doing superbikes on occasions. and being chased at the moment by Andrew Roberts, the South Australian, on bike 11. Both of them Yamaha 1000s.
Yes, I was lucky enough to ride one of these in the New Zealand Castrol 6 ad 2 weeks ago, and they really are a fabulous bike to ride. And both Roberts and Hodson making full use of them now. Hodson not getting away from Roberts. He broke through initially and took the lead, but now Roberts holding on gamefully.
Looming up behind in third place is 97 Steve Martin, the 19-year-old C-grade rider from South Australia. That's him. He turned 19 just 2 days ago. He's been racing for less than a year, and he's only just graduated from 250s to these 1000cc bikes. He's turning in a monster effort.
Half a second between first and second place, and about 1.2 seconds back to Martin in third on there on 97.
Thing sponsored by his bank manager. He's in debt up to his ears. He's staying in a local caravan park, and his only teammate and mentor is a 68-year-old former British trials rider who's been giving him all sorts of help over his very short career.
And don't forget, as we watch the leader, number 8, Grant Hodson, that these are production bikes, just as you can buy them from the showroom floor with production road tyres on them. Of course, the riders do their own minor tuning, but there's very limited to what they can do. They're not allowed, for instance, to take the air cleaners off or anything that would actually increase the horsepower to any marked extent. So it's rather a case of putting the bike together carefully as the manufacturer intended it.
2 seconds now between first and second place. This man slipping away a little bit, Andrew Roberts. Grant Hodson just craning his bike over a little bit more than Roberts. Roberts looking a bit stiff too, isn't he, on the way he sits on the bike.
It's not getting off the machine, and I wonder if he's perhaps running out of ground clearance on occasions, because he doesn't move across the machine, move his weight to the inside of the corner quite as much as Hodson does. You can see Hodson's backside has slipped right off the machine, the knee scraped the deck on the inside of the corner. You'll see the backside come across the seat, get ready for the next right-hander, the knee flips out, just picking the knee up to miss the curve.
Crashed at the end of the main straight in lead 1 on the first lap, then went on to win the second leg. Seems fairly certain at this stage, Peter, to pick up his second win today.
5 seconds blanketing the first 3, so about 3 seconds back from Roberts on 11 to the race leader Hodson.
And this is the race for fourth position between Jeff Paul on 24. And I think it was Phil Watt on 15. Paul is sponsored by the Coffs Harbour Holiday Factory and Sanctuary Resort. He's hopeful that he's going to pull major sponsorship from them next year to be able to contest the Superbike Racing Series in Australia. 31 years of age is Paul. Quite old for a man to be coming into the sport. He's only been riding for 4 years.
For the last 10 odd years, I've always looked on 31 as being quite a modest age, really.
And these also FZR 1000 Yamahas. Perhaps the capacity limit in this race a little bit unkind to Suzuki, who don't have 1,000. They've got an 1100 and a 750, of course. But that back to the leader, Grant Hodson. Great style from Hodson. Doesn't seem to be getting into any sorts of problems. Just a little bit of a gentle slide from the rear tyre. Nothing too much to worry about. Once more over the inside of the machine, picks the bike up, moves his body weight across to the inside of the corner.
On these bikes, more than any, with so much power, you must get your lines right, your clipping points right, your braking right. If you get ragged, you're going to be in an enormous amount of trouble with 130 horsepower getting untidy. If you get it all tidy, and as I say, get your lines around the circuit right, then you can start to think about using the power and the tremendous acceleration these machines have. In this configuration, I mean, even in road-going form with lights on and number plates, less than 11 seconds for a standing 400 metres. Coming round to complete 3 laps, Hodson goes by, and his margin now over Roberts is 3.65 seconds. Now, Roberts is being caught because he's about 4.4 seconds away from the man leading the series, Steve Martin, on 25 points, the C-grader in third place.
Martin really only has to stay where he is at the moment to pick up his first major race series win in Australia. And by major, I mean one that is being broadcast on national television and is therefore a very big plus in terms of establishing your credentials.
So Hodgson moving away. And then the series leader in third place, Martin. First and third in two races for Martin, from Jeff Paul's second and fourth. You saw him battling back in fourth place. Grant Hodgson, the race leader here, a crash and a first so far. And then Andrew Roberts has had a non-finish in the first heat and a second place in the second to Grant Hodgson. He has 12 points, lying fifth in the series.
Peter Clifford, there's a real move afoot in Australia to see production bike racing come to an end as a major class, to concentrate only on superbike racing, where the team managers say there's more development potential. Do you agree with that theory?
Well, it seems strange that just as in Europe we've started picking up on production racing, and there's now some real healthy production racing going on in England, that the Australians, which we always thought as the best production riders in the world, they certainly have. You have to hear the most famous production race in the world, the Castrol 6-hour race. It's now fading away. It seems strange to me, especially as such a logical connection between production racing and superbike racing. Guys can buy a production bike, start racing in this sort of class, and then if they want to spend more money, go further, they can either convert it to buy a superbike or at least use a similar sort of technology with the four-stroke.
4.7 seconds, the gap back from second place Roberts to this man in third, the series leader Steve Martin, and the lead of Grant Hodgson has gone out to 5 seconds, so it's now nearly 10, 9.75 seconds blanketing the first three. From this man, the race leader, back to the one you were just looking at, number 97, the series leader, Steve Martin. This is the final lap of 5. And coming round on the low section of the banking of the Calder Thunderdome for the final time is Grant Hodgson. Fair-haired, boyish-looking face, rather in the way of Glenn Taylor, who was also a gun production rider, at one stage a Team Honda Australia rider. Grant Hodgson very committed to getting up to that sort of situation himself, spending a lot of his own money both on buying machinery and running it, but also on preparing it.
Interesting to see Hodgson crouched low over the tank, exiting the corner. Although he moves his weight out and swings the bike one way to the other, he keeps as much of his body behind the screen as possible, cutting down the wind resistance to an absolute minimum, apart from now, of course, when he's under brakes and wants actually to use his body as an air brake. But now he's under acceleration again and head low behind the screen.
Just over 200 kilos, 130 horsepower, more than most cars, 1,000 cc's, inline four-cylinder, 5 valves per cylinder, and it is victory for Grant Hodgson on one of the FZR 1000 Yamahas, one of many that have come into racing in recent times, some 6 seconds in front of Andrew Roberts, the South Australian, on bike number 11. In second place, then in third place is 97, the series leader, Steve Martin, also from South Australia and also on a Yamaha 1000. The overall race time for Grant Hodgson was 9 minutes 42.66 seconds, averaging 130 kilometres an hour.
It's a real pleasure in a day of top Swann professionalism to be able to present the Eon FM trophy to the youngest man at Calder today, Steve Martin. To present you with your trophy, Steve, Kent Forbes from Eon FM.
Congratulations, Steve. Well
Thank
done.
you very much.
Well done, son. That's the Eon FM.
Thanks, Steve. That's excellent.
Steve, the youngest man in the field, you reckon you're a bit lucky to win it?
Yeah, I was fairly lucky that Grant Hodgson fell off in the first race.
Steve, how are you funding this racing?
Through my bank manager.
Where are you staying when you stay at Calder?
At a caravan park down the road, and we're staying in an on-site van.
What are your ambitions, Steve?
Just to get better, learn how to ride, keep up with Grant. That'll do for starters.
It's all right.
That's the view of the 4.2 kilometre combined oval racetrack and flat Calder circuit to the left of the picture that we're using for this third and fourth heats, round 2 of this 10th Swann Insurance International Motorcycle Series today. Next weekend, the final round at Lakeside Circuit near Brisbane, now that Surfers Paradise track has closed and the bikes now warming up for what is shaping to be a very tense race, a very interesting one technically for ABC viewers. We will have mini-cam, we hope, on 2 bikes. They're there. There's been quite a lot of problems because they're in a very violent environment on these bikes with vibration and so on, and there you see it. And that's due to people like the man in charge of the technical production side of it, Steve Pickering, the man really who's seen the whole concept through, Gary Doty, the links man who is a vital part of that, Nigel Pedersen, who's only in his mid-20s, and back in the workshop, Ross Vesky has just made brackets and made all the mountings, the engineering side of it, that's made it possible. It's been quite a development since late January. It was used, of course, in the Castrol 6-hour. Here we see it from the tail of Robert Holden's bike, looking back towards Rob McElnay. He's got one looking forward on his Yamaha. And Peter Clifford, as you know, it's a very, very difficult thing to achieve.
Yes, it's a real technological wonder, this, and very, very lucky to be able to see it and see such a good view of what's going on right in front of us as we watch Rob casually, carefully running the Yamaha around the Thunderdrome, very carefully warming up the tyres, and warming up the tyres is absolutely critical to this race because the tyres played such a big part in the first event.
And this is the way they will line up. The Swede Anders Anderson, Gary Knoll from England, Rob McElnay from Britain, Roger Marshall, England, David Lucci, Robert Holden, locals, Dowson, Kevin McGee, Malcolm Campbell, Scollier, Sean Gallagher, who crashed last weekend. Peter Goddard's gone well. As you can see, it's quite a big field. Tony Armstrong down from Queensland, the reigning Australian endurance race champion. And you were saying, Peter Clifford, that tyres are critical to this, more so than usually because of the unusual nature of the racetrack.
Yes, everybody's had a real fright around the Thunderdrome, the way that it's absolutely destroyed the right-hand side of the front tyres. And it's caused the teams to go to some rather unusual lengths to try and cure the problem. Several of the riders have decided to choose extraordinarily hard compound front tyres so they'll put up with the wear around the 2 very, very fast right-handers, although they realise that this is going to cause problems on the few left-handers that remain in the circuit. And in fact, the Yamaha team of Dowson and McGee have both elected to use actually old hard compound tyres because they never expected to need this compound here today and haven't got any new ones available. So they're going to be using some old hard compound tyres, whereas other riders have got just the new soft compound tyres.
In fact, Peter, so critical is the tyre shortage at the moment that Roger Marshall rushed up to me immediately after I did that piece to camera just a little while ago and took away the tyre of Mike Dowson to use in practice next weekend at Lakeside.
Yeah, well, Marshall is one of those with a new hard compound tyre, and it's going to be interesting to see how these riders cope. The left-handers are going to be really tricky if they've got the hard compound on the front because the tyre is liable to tuck under on them, and yet they'll have an advantage through the fast corners. And there now is the bike-mounted camera on McElnay's Yamaha. He's using a soft compound front, just as he did in the first leg, and that's bound to wear out towards the end, but at least it won't cause him any frights on the few left-handers.
That's the SO 211 Michelin, 212 Michelin. The 211 as the bike is being wheeled away. So a problem for Rob McElnay, the defending Swann Series champion, as his bike goes off the grid, and they're all in readiness, 8 laps, 33.6 kilometres. They get away, and it's Michael Dowson punches well. He actually lost the toss with Kevin McGee and got the more worn of the 2 second-hand tyres that they had. McGee falls back to 4th place, is almost slotted back to 5th.
But Campbell way back in 7th position. Campbell just blew the start, and he is right back in the field.
Roger Marshall's well up in the field. He's running 3rd at the moment. He said after 2 laps in the first race, I want racing, I was just touring, if that's Roger Marshall's accent.
Yes, a really brave move for Dowson because he threw that Yamaha into the tight left-hander. He's got that hard compound tyre, which might be a problem through the through the tight lefts, but he threw the Yamaha in and he survived it. Now he's taking advantage through the very fast right-hand curves of the Superdome.
Peter Goddard's got a great start. He's slotted into second place behind Michael Dowson. McGee's fourth. Roger Marshall's just in front of him there. Skull Bandit Suzuki third.
Mal Campbell's up to fifth position, right on McGee's tail.
The man that couldn't quite catch him in the previous race, but Campbell has been operating on next year's experimental Michelins. They're experimental at the moment for next year. He's got radials all round. Everybody else with cross-ply fronts. So Campbell's the man who's had the tyre advantage so far in the series. We look at Goddard at the moment, but let's have a look on Robert Holden's bike at Tony Armstrong, following him on 82. That gives you an idea of the tremendous speed of these bikes through the flip-flop, up the back straight at Calder.
Peaking at about 240 kilometres an hour up the back straight, and just look how Tony Armstrong closes in under brakes.
And Kevin McGee's third now, and Michael Dowson leads by 1.6 seconds. We look back again to Tony Armstrong on 82, the Suzuki that used to be raced by Rob Phillis. Michael Dowson, a very handy lead indeed. He goes out to 2.1 seconds over Goddard, who's now overtaken by McGee. So McGee is second, Goddard goes, no sir, hangs on to second. McGee is third, Marshall's fourth.
And I'm sure McGee backed off on the brakes there, conscious of the fact that that front tyre might give up going into the left-hander.
It's Campbell now up to fourth, behind McGee. Both of them on the tail of Goddard. Far less experienced rider than this McGee-Campbell duo.
And Dowson goes out to 2.8 seconds as McGee now on the 1000 Yamaha, monoing it, and going for them all is Campbell, three abreast on the dome. Right up on McGee's shoulder, into third place.
Goddard back to fourth.
Indeed, in no time flat. Goddard from second to fourth.
Just blown off by the 1000cc bikes, the 1000cc Yamaha and the NR750. The 750 Meraki couldn't keep up. That's Dowson leading. Then comes McGee, Campbell, Goddard, Marshall right on his tail.
Fabulous speed and determination on the bowl back there. This is 8 laps, 33.6 kilometres. Really quick stuff. Goddard getting sideways, getting the bike all loose. The Moriwaki Honda that kicked him off, but he rode it side saddle off the bike to a halt at Oran Park last weekend. Further back on 07 is Robert Holden, and Tony Armstrong behind him. Michael Dowson's leads 2.68 seconds over Kevin McGee, teammates. And look at the way he's got that thing sliding and howling as he brings it onto the front straight, and as he did at Oran Park last weekend in both heats, he streams away so determined to get up 2 wins. This weekend, he's lost a chance of 2 wins, but going for this one in a most determined fashion, and Malcolm Campbell out after Kevin McGee, the man that's got the big international chance next year, the chance that Malcolm Campbell thinks he's just as deserving of, and is very determined to prove it back here on home base in front of Kevin McGee's fans.
3 seconds separates Mike Dowson to this dueling pair. Then another 3 seconds back behind us again. Kevin McGee mono wheels at it just on 160 miles an hour on the bowl.
And it looked as though the NR750 had the power to draw alongside the 1000cc Yamaha in the mid-range, but just on top end the 1000 goes away, and McGee was able to hold out Campbell on the brakes.
Very different lines there from McGee and Campbell. Doesn't work out much differently in terms of the way they come off. Back onto the flat circuit.
It seems that the 1000cc Yamaha won't quite turn in as well as the Honda, and McGee has a few problems running wide through the corner, whereas the lighter, more nimble NR750 can be turned quicker and then squirted away.
2.6 seconds still the lead of Dowson over his Marlboro Yamaha dealer teammate Kevin McGee. Then it's Team Honda Australia, Malcolm Campbell in third place, trying to pressure McGee into an error, pressure into overworking his front tyres. Very different bikes, very different tyre situations. This man with Michelin technicians out from France, trying different construction, different compound for tyres for next year for Europe.
1 minute 48.19 seconds a lap on Michael Dowson.
and averaging about 140 kilometres an hour as they go now on to lap 4. The end of this lap brings up half race distance.
Rob Scottier's moved up into 4th position, eclipsing Roger Marshall.
Campbell closing once more on the tail of the Yamaha as they sweep round the base of the Thunderdome, but not as close as he was this time on the last lap. We'll see if he can get sucked into the slipstream of the Yamaha. That's the leader, number 1, Michael Dowson. Campbell, he did just get into the slipstream, but not close enough to make a passing manoeuvre, and there's really no way that he can go around the outside of McGee here.
The two men who clashed here in the World Superbike race last year touched, and Kevin McGee was off his bike down the Calder front straight at 240 kilometres an hour when Campbell moved over a little bit, and McGee thought at the time braked a little bit early.
Oh, and a bit of a slide there from McGee. I wonder if McGee's abusing the rear tyre because he's not that confident in the front. He might be going into the corners a little bit slower and desperately trying to get on the gas harder.
He was very keen to get on the gas nice and hard and early. And here, Anders Andersen, following Robert Holden, 2 Suzukis, the locally developed Action Suzuki. And again, through the back section of circuit, and that really does give you an idea of how quickly they're travelling as they go through that quick right and left-hand kink as they come off the hill and go up the back straight towards the second series of S's and Glow Weave corner. Michael Dowson, in the meantime, completes 4 laps, half race distance.
And you can see Anders' knee scraping the deck there with his red leathers, borrowed from Michael Dowson because his own have become too stiff. But Holden now squirting away from Anders Andersen down the straight. That's back to the second place battle with McGee still leading Campbell. Campbell looking for a way up the inside, but there's no room.
But the interesting thing is, Peter, that while these two are dicing furiously amongst themselves, they're also catching Michael Dowson.
Yes, they are. They've about
2.35 seconds is my gap.
Yep, that's
and
right.
It's closing well.
Yes, they've pulled in a few valuable tenths, so they really are honking this pair. McGee on the 1000 Yamaha, 5 valves per cylinder. That's pretty incredible technology that's going into Formula One car racing. Campbell on this oval pistoned Honda, 8 valves a cylinder and 2 conrods per piston. And that's banned in Formula One car racing. A really revolutionary engine in which Malcolm Campbell earlier today set history in world automotive engineering by winning a race with such an engine.
And now, as we see both riders slipping and sliding a little bit there, it's interesting to note that all the top men made changes to their machine between the legs. Dowson changed his suspension, as did McGee, and Campbell had a few tweaks as well. That's because these machines, these riders have very little experience on the new circuit using the Thunderdome and are still having to make changes to try and get the bikes to work under very exacting conditions. McGee seemed to just gain a few yards on Campbell through that section.
At 1.9 seconds, the gap first back to second places. Dowson here on bike number 1 comes round to complete lap 5, and the image he sees behind him is a closer, bigger one, with his teammate chasing him and Malcolm Campbell haunting him, so that there's only about 2 seconds spreading over the first 3 bikes on lap 6.
And Dowson knows there's no way he can afford to ease off. He might assume that McGee wouldn't be too desperate to overtake him as teammate, but he certainly knows that the Honda man, Malcolm Campbell, will try anything.
The race leader, beautiful shot from above, giving an idea of the incredible speed around the bowl there, where, as we said earlier, February the 28th next year, the first ever NASCAR stock car race on a banked oval circuit to be held outside America is scheduled for Calder Park near Melbourne.
I don't know if you could pick out there, but Malcolm Campbell has a different line to McGee on that corner. He dives off the banking, makes an early apex, and then drifts wide in the middle of the last right-hander of the Thunderdome before coming back again. An interesting variation on the line, which normally just hugs the inside.
They're all flying. They've broken into 47s now, compared with the touring cars, which went faster because they were up high on the banking, and they were therefore very much faster through the corners, and they were doing only 42s, 5 seconds faster. You can see the closing gap between the 3 of them. McGee's 1 second exactly behind his teammate. He closes under brakes. Malcolm Campbell's less than a second behind him. And so very shortly, and in fact there are only 2 laps remaining, it will be, and that's Robert Holden on 07, the other camera. Look at the camera on the tail end of it, just poking out through the fairing there, all taped into position, as now onto the straight, 2 laps remaining, 8.4 kilometres. They go down the straight, Dowson, McGee, Campbell.
And the old adage still remains, we'll never put a camera on a bike, because you know what happens, they always stop.
Now, interestingly, the front tyre situation seems to be working well for the Yamaha men. We haven't noticed them have any disastrous slides on the left-handers, and they're certainly getting through the right-hand as well. We've now got the camera in from the helicopter. You can see the bikes running wide up on the banking between the 2 fast corners at the end of the circuit. We're rushing down to the second long right-hander of the Thunderdome, and perhaps we can pick up that line, because there goes McGee hugging the inside. Behind him, Campbell will have drifted wide, cut back in again. McGee now swings left hard, trying to get the power on desperately, trying to get it on early to get a good drive away from that tight left-hand corner.
About a second still between these 2 teammates, and bike numbers 1, 2, they're running in real formation order. It's 1, 2, 3 in positions 1, 2, 3. Dowson, McGee, Campbell. 3 of the great talents in Australian motorcycle racing, absolutely blitzing the imported riders from Sweden and from Britain. And down the back straight goes Kevin McGee, and he's only half a second now behind Michael Dowson, and he's demonic under brakes. He closes right up to within about 3 bike lengths of him as he streams away from Malcolm Campbell. And can he, in the remaining 1 corner and 1 lap, do anything about the race lead? Dowson's won 2 heats. McGee hasn't won 1 yet. Campbell's won 1. And mono-wheeling while he's sideways cocked up and the back wheel sliding comes Kevin McGee onto the straight for the last time. Down now towards the Thunderdome. This will be sensationally fast round the banking.
McGee all slides. You see him cut inside. He tried to get the power on early, whacked the power on, and it came round. As he lost the fraction of a second, it makes a difference between winning and losing.
If my timing's right, they've not only broken 47s earlier in the race, I suspect they've broken into 46s if I got it right. So they really are ripping time off the best that they've done previously. Dowson leads McGee. Not many places for him to pass.
McGee closes on the brakes.
Campbell comes with him.
Gets a little bit too close to the inside curve there. If he'd have been closer, he would have had a look down the inside here on the left-hander if he hadn't made that mistake going on to the Thunderdome.
Beautiful through there. Absolutely tight and on the early with the power, sitting the bike up early. Dowson now's crossed up under brakes as he goes down to Valvoline corner at the end of the main straight. They don't use very much of it. They come out now and have to hook right and left to the S's. Then head up to the hill, and through the kink here will be critical as they go down the back straight. Breaking down the end of there will be on for everybody as Kevin McGee fires number 2 as hard as he dare as they head off now down the back straight, and his real last chance as he goes down on the brakes. He draws level with his teammate, both bikes skittish and going sideways, and McGee gets offline. Dowson holds it, Kevin stays there, falls back towards Malcolm Campbell, and therefore almost certainly will be victory to Michael Dowson on bike number 1 as he hangs on. He gets it all right. McGee tried everything and didn't quite pull it off. In a brilliant last-minute dive 2 for the line as Malcolm Campbell goes at McGee. It is victory, though, for Michael Dowson from Kevin McGee. Did hang on. Took second place on bike number 2. So it's Yamaha's 1 and 2. Malcolm Campbell third by just a whisker in that thrilling finish on the last lap of a race that was done in 14 minutes, 26.33 seconds, averaging very nearly 140 kilometres an hour, including the race start, 139.7 for the 8 laps. And that really was, Peter Clifford, pretty breathless stuff. Absolutely on the limit.
I think that was incredible riding from all 3 men there. Terrific stuff on the last lap from McGee to try and go down the inside of Dowson. He only had 1 chance. He made that slight error which cost him going on to the Thunderdome on that last lap, but he made up the ground, tried to go down the inside of Dowson, and Dowson, beautiful stuff. He just held his ground. He knew he had the advantage. He could come across the front of McGee. There was no reason for him to give ground, and he held his ground. And of course, McGee was left with nothing to do. He had to back off. In fact, he almost ran into the back of Dowson as he had to ease off.
McGee very concerned about what was going on behind him as Malcolm Campbell just tucked his head down hard and went, and the man with the checkered flag said, "This is no place for me." He had to back away. And in the meantime, of course, Michael Dowson had taken victory and continues to hold his Swann Series lead in very fast, very determined and brilliantly skillful racing to complete round 2, 4 heats of this 3 rounds and the 6 heats altogether of this 10th Swann Insurance International Motorcycle Series. That's been such an important stepping stone. Have a look as Kevin McGee tried for everything through the kink here. He'd mono-wheeled it off the top hill, and then look how hard he was punching. Michael Dowson was giving him no room down the right-hand side, but suddenly he pulled over, was looking for a good entry into the S's, and McGee said, "I'm going down the inside," and then they had to look at his back wheel. It was up in the air, and it was going sideways everywhere, and Malcolm Campbell's watching and saying, "Boy, if that's what you do to your teammate, I'd hate to have enemies." And in fact, Kevin McGee had very nearly hit the lead, but he had to pull back, and in fact, he could easily, so easily, have collided with Michael Dowson. That's the reason he ran wide. He was actually on line. But Michael Dowson, in taking his line, total blind commitment, saying, "Boy, I'm not giving way, this is my corner." Michael Dowson forced Kevin McGee to sit it up, go offline, and thereby get back there and be threatened and very nearly overtaken by Malcolm Campbell. Quite sensational stuff. Have a look here at Malcolm Campbell. He tucks down McGee, looks over his left shoulder, doesn't even see him, and Campbell just goes for it. He opens up the taps on one of the fastest motorbikes in world motorcycle racing at the moment, with some 160 horsepower on a bike weighing only 150 kilos. That's probably about 5 horsepower more than the 500cc Grand Prix machine that Wayne Gardner used to win this year's World 500 Championship. But of course, Gardner's bike is very, very much lighter than that. It's faster in terms of lap times, but not as powerful as that revolutionary NR750 Honda. And Kevin McGee, the big, bright, lovely smile, and he just thinks it's a whole pile of fun. An absolute ball. Mick Smith there from Team Honda Australia, and all of them enthused by sensational entertainment that will be, of course, followed by next weekend at Lakeside Circuit, a very rough one, and one, remember, where Michael Dowson, last time he raced, had a dreadful accident. He broke a wrist, a leg, and was a long time recuperating, but hasn't he recuperated and recovered in brilliant fashion? Michael Dowson, the 27-year-old who's originally from Western Australia and who has moved in more recent times to Queensland, races out of there now, and who'll be getting quite a lot of international opportunity next year while Kevin McGee does a full World Championship schedule.
Mike Dowson and Malcolm Campbell each had a win and a 3rd place in today's second leg of the Swann Insurance Series at Calder. But because Mike Dowson won the last leg, he's been named winner of the day. And to present you, Mike, with your trophy is Ian Balfe, General Manager of Swann Insurance.
Congratulations. Well done.
Thanks, Ian.
Mike, that was some race.
It was, yeah. We had a major problem in the first race. We selected a 2-softer compound, and we never had any harder compounds available. We found a couple of old ones sitting in the back of the truck, so we flipped the coin for the best and the second best. I got the second best, but it looked like it works okay.
Kevin, the race behind you is just superb between Kevin and Malcolm Campbell. They were really all over each other.
I thought they might have been. I had a couple of looks coming onto the straight here, and they looked like they were crawling over each other, but I had a margin. I held it for a little while, but don't really know the circuit good enough to sort of pull away and keep a good distant pace, but I'm happy the way it went.
You're going to Lakeside, the final round of the Swann Insurance Series next weekend, a leader in the series. Lakeside is your home circuit, Mike, but it's not been kind to you.
No, it hasn't. But no, I still like Lakeside. I don't blame it for the crash. I blame myself. But the circuit, I think, is still a good one. And the good thing is I only got 5 minutes to go home, so that'll be even better.
Is it a Yamaha circuit or a Honda circuit?
We'll have to find out, but I think it should be a good one.
Well, that's the situation here at Calder Park this afternoon. Will Hagen's got all the points to tell us just what's going to happen at Lakeside next weekend.
I'm not too sure what will happen up at Lakeside, but the situation that they'll start with when they go up there for another 2 heats in this, as I said, 10th Swann Insurance International Series is that Michael Dowson has been the series leader since Heat 1 last weekend at Oran Park. He retains that lead, which had been narrowed to just 4 points after the first heat today. Kevin McGee, 48, both of them Marlborough Yamaha dealer team. Then Malcolm Campbell, team Honda Australia. Robbie Scollier, his teammate, been overtaken in the first heat, and that lead built slightly by Campbell. So it's Honda's 3 and 4 from Yamaha's 1 and 2. It's Roger Marshall, the visiting British rider, very experienced at road circuits, probably will quite like the bumpiness of Lakeside. 5th place for Suzuki, Robert Holden Suzuki, no points scored in that heat. And Anders Andersson, also the Swede, here on a Suzuki, as in 13 points back there in 7th place.
Well, Peter Clifford, it looks like it's all coming down to the wire at Lakeside next weekend. And I asked Mike Dowson whether it's a Yamaha circuit or a Honda circuit. What do you think?
I don't know. I've not been there, but I've been hearing a lot of rumours about it being bumpy, tight, and I know the other foreigners who've come over with me, like they don't know quite what to expect. It's going to be interesting. I suspect that the Yamaha perhaps would be an easier bike to ride, with more grunt out of the corners. Maybe should be easier to get the power on, I don't know.
And yet, because there are some big sweeping corners there, presumably that's Honda territory.
Yeah, I guess so. If the fast open corners, the Honda is nearer a Grand Prix machine than the Yamaha is, and through the fast sweepers it should be making up ground.
What did you think of today with that incredible tyre wear?
Absolutely. It was a sensational day all the way around, wasn't it? It had the perfect blend of sort of technical problems for the guys to battle again, try and sort the bike out, decide what tyres to wear, and just ended up with a great three-way fight between three really good riders.
How come it is that the Swann Insurance Series always gives good racing?
I don't know. It's incredible. I thought we were going to come here to see a Honda benefit. I thought they'd brought the technology that would sweep the board with everybody, and then we started off with the total opposite of that, a Yamaha benefit, and it's now almost even Stevens, 2/3 of the way through and building up to a great final round. I don't know how it happens, but each time the Swann Series produces the goods.
If you were Honda and you'd spent $1 million in development on each of those machines, would you be licking your wounds about now?
No, because I don't think Honda see it like that. The bike's working, it's starting to win races, and that's one thing that they want, but it's working, it's finishing races, and it's proving the technology, which is very important to them.
Where does Honda go from here? Do they perhaps employ someone like Warren Willing to teach them how to do it?
I don't know. No, I think they're doing a good job, but I think it remains to be seen what they do in the future. This is just the beginning, I think, for the NR. I mean, it could possibly be the whole future of Honda four-stroke racing.
Well, Mal Campbell finds himself really behind the 8-ball at Lakeside next weekend. Do you reckon he can pull it off?
He's going to need a bit of help. I mean, the mistake he made in the first race obviously cost him dearly as far as the points are concerned, and he's got a points deficit to make up. But he's capable of winning both races, of course. And the Yamahas have had problems that we haven't really seen. They've had problems in practice. The engines have been really tired. They've missed practice sessions because of engine problems. And if any of those problems transpired in a race, and one on Dowson or McGee failed to finish, then of course Campbell would be right in there with a fighting chance.
Well, Peter Clifford, thanks for your help today, and to Will Hagen up in commentary as well. That's all from Calder Thunderdome this afternoon. But stay with us, for Sports Arena continues on ABC throughout Australia.